We do have some new information for you. Right after the 10 o'clock show, we learned that the victim's family has been notified, so we can now identify him. Our sources say his name is John George. Investigators believe he was beaten to death by his longtime friend and roommate, Robert Nelson. Nelson's in the Calhoun County Jail tonight as the investigation continues. Just before 4 this afternoon, police cars poured into this Battle Creek neighborhood surrounding this home.
The cops went up there, was knocking on the door real hard.
Randy Sparks says officers didn't knock on his neighbor's door for long.
The next thing, I heard him kick the door in.
The victim was inside on the floor, beaten to death. Police believe by a baseball bat. The suspect, his longtime friend Robert Nelson, made his way to this veteran's apartment complex in Battle Creek.
I was in the computer lab. I saw people just standing in the lobby. Then I saw some police officers.
Kevin Broderick says the building was immediately locked down.
Couldn't come out of your rooms. People that were already in the lobby, they had to stay there.
The suspect ran into an apartment. Broderick says the man who lives there ran into the lobby and called police.
I didn't hear, but I just know he was very upset, crying. A buddy of his came over and said that he killed someone.
Police spent the next few hours trying to get Nelson out of the apartment.
It just took a long time. SWAT came, and I mean, he didn't want to come out.
Sources tell us Nelson called 911, said he had a shotgun and threatened to kill any officer who came into the apartment. But turns out he didn't have a gun, and negotiators eventually talked him out.
I saw him get brought out the side door in handcuffs.
All right, now the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office is in charge of this investigation. Will not be releasing a photo of Nelson until he is arraigned. That most likely will happen at 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. Nelson is expected to be charged with open murder, and we will be there. You know, St. Joe County deputies are now saying that they do believe this is a meth ring that they're dealing with. About half of the suspects they've arrested in recent weeks are still behind me here in the St. Joe County Jail, and others have bonded out. But the main question that we have right now is, how large is this crime ring, and how far might it reach? East US 12 in White Pigeon. Deputies arrest Jason Mao, Todd Jackson, Thomas Bradley, and the homeowner John McIntyre, and seize meth components, and 7 guns. 1 week later, at the intersection of US 12 and 131, St. Joe County deputies pull over a car loaded with everything needed for a meth lab, and they arrest Heather Marker, Amy Boyd, and Dustin Cole. That bus leads to another home on US 12, where they found more meth.
Bolt-action shotgun.
And many more guns.
Some of them are hunting weapons. Some of them are more of an assault-style weapon.
Including an SKS and AK-47 style assault rifles.
It is alarming. Anytime we're sending people out to do investigations on these type of activities, it's dangerous.
Captain Jason Bingaman says deputies were also able to arrest this man, Martin Gillette, though not right away.
When the search warrant was executed, he was not there.
But his mother was.
I was the only one here.
She agreed to talk to us on behalf of her son if we wouldn't show her face.
They knocked on the door, and 2-3 people came in the front door, and 1 came in the back door.
They were after the guns, which she claims don't belong to her son.
He was asked to keep these guns for someone, and they brought them here, and they had things in the garage.
Deputies say the garage is where they found large amounts of meth and meth components. Add that to 8 arrests and nearly 20 guns seized in the last 2 weeks. Bingaman says this story could be much different.
You can see by what we have here today that how something like this could turn bad in a hurry.
All right, now when I asked deputies directly how large they thought this crime ring was, the only thing they could tell me is that it is an ongoing investigation, which, of course, we are going to stay on top of. And if we learn of any more arrests, we'll make sure to let you know. Back in 2004, after a mental breakdown, a young mother checked herself in here at the Kalamazoo Psychiatric Hospital, and this is where she met Danny Helgeson. Now, she says what Helgeson did to her while she was a patient here is extremely difficult to talk about, but because Helgeson has been a longtime employee with his own set of keys and unlimited access to patients, she says she wants to make sure other potential victims can hear her story, and we have protected her identity.
Danny was just like an aide.
She says it didn't take long for Helgeson to come visit her alone.
I was in my room one day, and he came to do a check, and that's when he was on me.
She says medication allowed Helgeson to do anything he wanted.
I was really out of it. I didn't put it together as it being wrong.
How often did this happen?
At least twice a week.
She says Helgeson made her think what he was doing was all right, something her mother picked up on.
There were just a couple remarks that she had made to me about Danny. Like, he came into the waiting room once and she said that, you know, that was her boyfriend.
She says her daughter was sedated to the point of slurring her speech, so she wasn't sure what to believe.
I said, if it's happening, it's wrong, because first of all, he works for a state hospital and you don't do that.
After 3 months in the hospital, her daughter was released. She says Helgeson convinced her to move into his apartment in Schoolcraft.
He wanted to control. He wanted to tell her what to do, when to do it, how to do it.
But once out of the hospital, the grip started to weaken.
And I was weaning myself off the medication that they had given me, and that's when it really hit me that this wasn't right. I would look at him and I'd be sick to my stomach. I'd want to puke.
She says she moved away from Schoolcraft and wrote a letter to KPH explaining what Helgeson had done to her, but never got a response.
I thought that maybe they thought that I was making it up.
Finally, just a few months ago, a detective called her about Helgeson.
I was told by the detective that there were two other women that are still at the hospital. And that's the reason why they're pursuing this now.
All right, now when she says 2 other women still at the hospital, she is talking about 2 other patients, 2 other alleged victims, but neither the Kalamazoo County Prosecutor's Office nor Kalamazoo Public Safety can comment on an ongoing investigation or the possibility of other victims. Of course, we will stay on top of this case and update you with any developments. Right now, Helgeson is due back in court on March 20th. We had arranged to meet with the mother of the baby, Bridget Moore, around 8:30 tonight to discuss this terrible incident here at Bronson Hospital. And that was about the time she was called back into the prenatal intensive care unit to be with her son. Then shortly after 9 o'clock, we learned that her baby was dead. Now, the father in this, Glenn Ross, has been arrested on child abuse charges, and we were able to catch up with his parents tonight to talk about their son and exactly what happened yesterday. Everything started here at Glenn Ross's parents' home on Burl Street in Kalamazoo yesterday morning.
Glenn was left alone with the baby.
His mother, Rebecca Ross, says Glenn was special needs all through school. He actually does have some limitations mentally.
Yes.
Okay.
And he is under psychiatric care.
Why is that?
For his bipolar and his ADHD and among other things.
She says her son has trouble in certain situations, gets frustrated easily, and has a short temper. It's one reason her son and Moore didn't keep their first child. Why did they decide to give the first child up for adoption?
They weren't ready to settle down. And I know that with this one, Glenn found out it was a boy, and he wanted his son.
But she says yesterday, fatherhood overwhelmed him.
He got frustrated and shook the baby.
She says Glenn knew something was wrong with his son afterward, but wasn't sure what. So he lined the baby down in its crib. Rebecca says when the child's mother showed up and heard what happened, she called for an ambulance and police. Do you think there's any part of your son that did this intentionally?
Oh, hell no.
No.
Hell no.
All right, now Ross is in the Kalamazoo County Jail tonight on child abuse charges. He hasn't been arraigned yet. Our sources tell us that's because police were waiting to see whether or not the infant survived so they could charge him appropriately. We believe that he will be charged tomorrow, arraigned officially tomorrow, and as soon as he is, we'll let you know what exactly the charges are. A very emotional interview, but Moore says she never saw Ross be anything but sweet to their child. She says he would get upset when he didn't know why the infant was crying, so they actually ended up going to a parenting class together. And she says despite what Child Protective Services and what many internet posts say, she had no reason to think that her child was in danger. Tuesday morning, Bridget Moore left her boyfriend, Glenn Ross Sr., at his parents' house with their 2-week-old, Glenn Ross Jr., to see an eye doctor.
And I was like, I should only be gone about an hour at the most.
When she got home, she says Ross was shirtless and sweaty. His father, Roger, was upstairs, The baby's clothes had been changed and something was clearly wrong.
He had gurgly, like really gurgly breathing. Like he had something in his throat. I was like, okay, there's blood on his onesie. What happened? What did you do?
That's when she tried to clear her son's throat.
That's when I seen blood come out. And Roger came back downstairs and said he shook the baby. That's when I just started crying, and I called 911, and Roger was like, don't call the cops. So he was like, he needs help, and I was like, no, he doesn't. He needs to be in jail.
Once she got her son to Bronson Hospital, it was clear the situation was dire.
They told me that there was a lot of swelling in his head.
After nearly 36 hours, she left his room for a moment, but was quickly called back in.
They knew that whatever they were going to tell me wasn't good at all, because they had done his EEG to see if there was any brain activity, and she said that there was none. And then they had to pronounce him dead. I couldn't breathe in my stomach. I felt sick to my stomach, and I just, like, all the reality of it just hit me at once. That he actually killed our baby.
After all that, the next morning she was bombarded by internet traffic, calling her a bad mother.
Who would ever think not to leave him with his own father? And that's something I'm gonna have to live with for the rest of my life. As if I wouldn't have left him with him, then he would still be here.
Obviously a nightmare for any parent. Ross Sr. has confessed to shaking his child, but his family maintains he needs a mental evaluation before the legal process goes any further. Right now he has a preliminary exam scheduled early next month. Moore says if Ross is convicted on murder charges, he deserves it, but she has sympathy for how difficult life in prison will be for him.
Tonight, Jared Worksma looked into new allegations of misconduct. He's joining us live outside the Barry County Prosecutor's Office in Hastings. Jared.
Yeah, Andy, we learned back in December that Michael Terpening's 11-year-old mentally challenged son was charged with 6 counts of assault and 2 counts of 4th-degree criminal sexual conduct for his behavior in school. Now, Terpening is saying that his son is being used as a bargaining chip to get him to plead guilty. So we got ourselves a copy of the state police investigation. Our sources say detectives never expected charges in this case, and we talked to close to half a dozen prosecutors across the state who say they never should have been issued. More than 30 students altogether saying things like he would smack them on their butt, has touched girls' butts and boobs, and grabbed my privates. Several students even claim he would say things like, I'm going to come to your house and rape you, often in more vulgar terms.
It's very strong language.
Former Barry County prosecutor David Gilbert says there is enough evidence to charge the child with assault and CSC 4th. The question is, would he?
I might have issued it.
In the MSP report, students say Terpening acted this way for years. It wasn't until his father was in the news for being charged with criminal sexual conduct that anyone took action.
The kids at school were picking on him because of things the other kids have seen on the media about myself.
In December, Michael Terpening told us he believed his son was acting out because of what other kids were saying, even parroting threats and language. He also believes state police never would have heard about it if his son's last name wasn't Terpening.
I do not believe they would be involved at all.
And there are problems throughout the case, starting with a teacher asking everyone in class to raise their hand if Terpening made inappropriate comments or touched them inappropriately.
That was wrong. That gets into the herd mentality.
Meaning peer pressure was a major factor, which according to the report was also a problem when the students were asked to write down what their 11-year-old mentally challenged classmate had allegedly done to them.
One of the kids says, well, let's make some stuff up. That's kind of disconcerting because you've got people actually making true allegations and you've got other kids actually lying.
When state police interviewed the students, the vast majority changed or qualified their statements, saying allegations of grabbing my privates came from a game where boys would walk around and try to backhand each other in the groin. They also said the inappropriate or threatening statements usually came in a group setting. Students told police he just blurts out statements. He's a mental kid that needs help, and I do not think he realizes he's acting that way.
The appears that this child needs some counseling. More than likely, based upon the IQ, he's not competent to be tried anyway.
As for Michael Terpening's allegation that the prosecutor's office offered to drop his son's charges if he would take a plea deal, Gilbert says that would be unthinkable.
I don't believe the prosecutor would do that. And if they did it, yes, it would be unethical.
All right, now we have reached out to the Barry County Prosecutor's Office multiple times today for response to these allegations. We haven't heard back yet, though. We have heard from several of our sources that the charges against Michael Terpening's son are being dropped because he was found not competent to stand trial. However, last time we talked to the Barry County Prosecutor, he told us there is still a court date scheduled for March 7th. We're live tonight outside of the Barry County Prosecutor's Office in Hastings. I'm Jared Werksma, News Channel 3.